Hello friends, my name is Kumar and welcome back to my channel Kumar Programming. Today we are going to cover a very important questions from our JavaScript interview question answer series, which is design pattern. Question related to the design pattern can be asked in a different way, like what do you understand about the design pattern, why we use design pattern, what all the design pattern you have used in your project, and how many type of design patterns are there. So these kind of questions can be asked from the design pattern. Essentially, we have a lot of design patterns. However, we are going to cover singleton, observer, and factory design pattern. These three patterns are very commonly used, and these design patterns are frequently asked by the interviewer. And finally, we will do the practical and understand the concept thoroughly. Now, let's first understand what is design pattern. So basically, we have a lot of problems, right? Common problems. Suppose that here we have one problem, here I have another problem, and here we have third problem. Okay. And these problem could be anything which developer can face while designing or structuring their application. So in order to solve those kind of problems, we have some reusable solutions. Okay. And these solutions are specific to the problems. And by using these solutions, developer can write code which is maintainable, scalable, reliable, and easy to understand. Okay. So these reusable solutions are nothing. These are the design patterns which solve common problems which developer face while designing and structuring their application. Okay. Let's see the definition now. In JavaScript or any other programming language, design patterns are reusable solution to common problems that developer face when designing and structuring their code, right? And these patterns help developer create more maintainable, scalable, reliable, and efficient code by providing proven solution or reusable solution or strategic solution to the recurring issues or common problems or recurring problems. So now I hope that you will be able to answer for the questions like what is the design pattern and why we use the design pattern. Okay. Now let's see the next thing, type of design pattern. Mainly we have three type of design pattern: creational, structural, and behavioral. Now let's understand the differences between these three design patterns. So creational is related with whenever we are trying to create the objects. The pattern which is used to create the objects is known as a creational pattern. And once object is created, then we have to define the relationship between the objects, right? So the pattern which define the relationship between the objects is known as a structural pattern. And once we have created the object, we have defined the relationship between the object, then we need to communicate in between the objects, right? So the pattern which is used to communicate between the objects is known as a behavioral design pattern. Now further, these design patterns are categorized into multiple sub-design patterns on the basis of their common problems. So here if you see this singleton, factory, prototype, builder and module, these design patterns are used to create the objects. So that's why these design patterns are coming under creational design pattern. Now second design pattern which we have as a structural. So structural is also categorized into decorator, command and facade design pattern. And these design patterns are used to define the relationship between the objects. Now third one, behavioral. Behavioral is also categorized into multiple design patterns as observer, strategy, command, state and MVC, model view controller. And these design patterns are used to communicate between the objects. I have highlighted here three design patterns: singleton, factory and observer, because we are going to see these design patterns in detail in this video, and rest of the other design patterns I'll cover in the second part of this video later on under advanced category. Okay, so now it's clear what is design pattern, how many type of design pattern and why we use those design patterns. Okay, now let's understand singleton design pattern in detail. So interviewer can ask like what is singleton design pattern and why we use it. So now let's first understand what is singleton design pattern. Singleton design pattern ensure that a class has only one instances, okay, and provide a global point of access to that instance. a class is having only one instance throughout the application, and there is no other instance created for that particular class, and all the clients are accessing only one instance of the class. And where we use that singleton pattern, we use singleton pattern in configuration management, where we have to configure some common configuration throughout the application. Also, we use in the database connections. We ensure that we are connecting the database once and then we are reusing that connection. And also we use the singleton pattern to create logging service that ensure that we are creating only one logger object and that object is being used throughout the application. Okay. Now let's see the code snippet, how we can achieve the singleton pattern. So here if you see, I have created a singleton class over here. Inside that class, I have created a constructor, and inside the constructor, I have given a condition. Here we are checking singleton dot instance. It means it's checking do we have instance of this singleton class or not. If we don't have, then it will go inside and it will pass the this object to the singleton instance. Otherwise, it will return the singleton instance. And whenever we are creating the singleton object by using our singleton class, first time it's going to create the instance, and second time it's going to reutilize that instance itself. Okay. I hope that you are able to understand. Now let's have the practical demonstration for this, so you would be able to understand it clearly. Now let's flip to the Visual Studio. Here in our previous video, we have created a file map underscore weak map in order to demonstrate the differences in between map and weak map. Now let's create another folder inside our JavaScript folder as a design pattern. Now inside design pattern, I'm going to create one more file here as a singleton.js. Here I'm going to use the same code which I have explained. Here I have created a singleton class, and inside the constructor I am checking if there is a singleton instance or not. If there is no instance, then it's going to create an instance inside that by using this keyword and then returning the singleton instance. And here first time we are creating the instance, so it's going to create the instance by using this keyword, and second time it's going to return the same instance. Okay, and here we are checking if both instances are equal or not. Here we are expecting true value, right? So now let's debug this code and understand that what exactly happening here. So let's put breakpoint over here and one breakpoint inside the if condition, and here one breakpoint for first instance and another breakpoint for second instance, and here we are checking both of the instances. Okay, now let's debug this. In order to debug, I'll use run and debug by using our web app Chrome. So basically we are using our port 5500, so I'm going to use here 5500 port. Save it, and now let's launch it. As soon as we launch, let's minimize it first. Yeah, so as soon as we launch and we are creating the first instance, okay, from the singleton class. So now let's continue. It goes inside the constructor of the singleton class, and it will go inside the if condition, because here we don't have any instance of the singleton class, right? And it's going to return singleton instance from here. And when we are going to create the second instance, again it will go to the constructor, but this time since already we are having the instance, it's not going to create the instance. Okay, it's going to return the same instance. See here, now it didn't go to the if condition, it's returning the same instance. Now here we are checking if both of the instances are same or not. So let's run this and let's go back to our console. Here you can see we are getting the true value, right? In order to prove that, let's have a property over here as a count and set some value over here from the instance1 dot count equal to 1, right? Now the same count value we can get from instance 2 as well, right? So now let's try to access count value from the instance 2 as well. So here console dot log count from instance 2, right? And here we will put instance 2 dot count. Okay, now let's save it and remove all the breakpoint for now. Run this, and here you can see inside the console access count from the instance 2 is 1. here we are assigning count property to the instance 1 and we are trying to access count property from instance 2, right? And we are getting the value, same value. It means we are having the same instances, right? And it doesn't matter how many times we are going to create the instance from the singleton class. Friends, I hope you understood about singleton design pattern. Now let's understand one more design pattern from creational category as factory design pattern. What is factory design pattern? Factory design pattern is part of creational design pattern. Now let's see the definition. The factory design pattern define an interface for creating objects, right? And involves creating object through a common interface, but allowing subclasses to alter the type of objects that will be created. What does it mean? So let's try to understand with a diagram. So let's have a class. I can say as a parent class car, and let's have two other classes as sedan car and SUV car. Okay, and these two cars are derived from car classes. Okay, so this is my parent class, and this sedan and SUV car is my child class. Now here we have a client. Sorry for my bad sketch over here. So here I have my client and he needs a SUV car. If he try to connect to the SUV car directly, so it would be a tightly coupled. Okay, client is tightly coupled with our SUV object, and that is a very bad design. So what we have to do, we will create a wrapper class on top of these classes, and that wrapper class will be factory class. Okay, and it would be having a method create car, and in this create car method we are passing the type, which type we need, right? We need SUV type, or we need a sedan type, right? Or we need a generic car. Okay, and suppose that tomorrow one more client is coming and he's saying like he need a sedan car, right? He need a sedan car, so he's not going to communicate directly with the sedan car, so he's going to communicate with this factory class by passing a parameter as a sedan, so it will return a object for the sedan class. Okay, so in this pattern, rather than communicating directly with the class, client needs to communicate with a common interface which is responsible to create the objects. So this pattern is known as a factory design pattern. It will be more clear once we will have our practical demonstration. Now let's see what is the use cases of factory design pattern. So factory design pattern used for object creation with a common interface, right? It also used for the configuration management, as well as we use factory design pattern to implement singleton pattern with factory. Suppose that we have several classes in an application which needs to create a single instance, right? So for all those classes, we will create a factory to implement a singleton pattern for that. Now let's see the code snippet. Here, as I have explained earlier, here I have created a class as a car, that is my parent class. And after that, I have created a subclass as a sedan, that is inherited from the car class, parent class. After that, I created a SUV car, and that is also extended from parent class, car. And on top of that, I created another factory class where I'm creating the objects for sedan, SUV and car on the basis of parameter that we are passing inside our create car method, right? Now here client comes and he communicate with the car factory class, right? He create a object of car factory, and car factory is taking the responsibility to create the different type of car objects. So client is not going to communicate directly with our car objects. He is going to communicate with our car factory class. Okay. And then after that, we can use the method from our car, sedan and SUV class. Okay. Now let's have the practical demonstration, so it would be more clear. Let's flip to the Visual Studio. Inside my design pattern, here I'm going to create one more file as factory pattern.js file. And here I'm going to use the same code which I have used in the code snippet. So as I explained earlier, we have a parent class here as a car, and then sedan class is extended from the parent. It's inherited from the parent class, and SUV also subclass is extended or inherited from the car class. And here we have a car factory class which is taking which type of car we need, and we are passing the type over here, and on the basis of that we are creating the objects. Okay, so here client is trying to communicate with the car factory class, and he's creating an object for car factory, and then car factory is creating the objects on the basis of parameter which we have passed. If we have passed sedan, then it's returning a sedan car. If we have passed SUV, then it's returning a object for SUV car. If we have not passed anything, then it's returning a generic car, right? That is the parent car. And once object are created for those classes, then we can call their drive methods. Okay, so this pattern known as a factory pattern, where we are creating objects from the common interface. This car factory is the common interface, right? Now let's run this. So in order to run this, we have to change the reference. So here I'll comment this line, and I'll be using here factory pattern. Okay, now let's save it and run this. Let's go live. Now my application is running on 5500 port. Here inspect. Let's go to the console. So here you can see sedan.drive driving a sedan car, suv.drive driving a SUV car, and if we have not passed any parameter over here, then it return an object for the generic car, this generic car, and we have called this object for the generic car method here, driving a generic car. Okay, so I hope you understood about the factory pattern. Now the next pattern that we are going to discuss about is observer design pattern, that is a part of behavioral pattern. Okay, what is observer design pattern and where we use observer design pattern? Observer design patterns are part of behavioral design pattern, where we are dealing with communication between the objects. Now let's see the definition. The observer pattern define a one-to-many dependency between the objects, right? So that when one object changes the state, all its dependents are notified and updated automatically. Now let's understand with a diagram. So here I'm taking a class. I can say this is a publisher, or it could be subject. Okay, and here I'm taking some more classes, and I can say these classes are subscriber, or I can say these are the observers. Okay, here publisher and subject is the same thing, and here subscriber and observer is the same thing. Okay, and these all subscriber are having dependency on publisher class or subject class. Okay, whenever we do any changes in the publisher or subject class, then all of our subscriber needs to be notified and take the action accordingly. Okay, this pattern known as a observer pattern. Okay, now let's understand where we use the observer pattern. Mainly observer pattern is used for event handling and data binding, as well as where we are using the publisher and subscriber model, right? Now let's see the code snippet. Here, as I mentioned, here I have a subject class. In subject class, we have a observer array. This observer array is having the reference of multiple observers, okay, who is going to observe this subject, right? And we have a method where we are adding our observer, add observer. Here we are removing our observer, and here we are notifying our observer. Okay, whenever we do some changes inside our subject class, we are going to notify to our observer. And here, if you see, here we have a observer class. Okay, and observer class is having a one method as a update, where it's taking an action on the basis of data received from the subject. And now here you can see we are creating a subject object of the subject class here, and then we are creating the multiple observers, right? And we are adding these observers to the subject class. See here we are adding those observers inside our subject class by using this add observer method. Okay, these observers are having dependency on subject class, right? And now we do some changes, and we are trying to notify here to all the observers. So once subject dot notify observer method that we have called, it's going to notify to all the observers and take the action accordingly, right? All the update methods from the observer class is going to call on the basis of data that we have received from subject. Here we are passing the data, and that data is going to be passed to the notify observer, and each and every observer is going to call their update method, right? Now let's see with the practical demonstration. Let's flip to the Visual Studio. Here inside our design pattern folder, I'm going to create a new file as observer pattern.js, and here I'm using same code which I have explained. So here we have created a subject class and we have created an observer class. Okay, let's format it. Yeah. So here we have subject class and here we have observer class. This subject class is having an array of observers and it's having the reference of multiple observer classes. Okay, we are adding observer by add observer method and removing observer from remove observer method and notifying observers. Okay, through notify observers we are calling update method from all the observers. Okay, and we are passing the data from subject class to the observer. And here we have created a subject class and then we have created two observers and we added both of the observer inside our subject class. And then finally we are doing some changes in the data and then we are notifying to the observers. Once we call notify to the observers, then it goes to this method and find the reference of all the observers and then execute the update method for all the observers here. Right now let me run this. Before execution, let me change the reference here. I'll use pattern and here I'll use observer pattern.js file. Now let's save it. Yep, here you can see received update with data. Received update with data. Here we are passing date, right? So and it got executed two times. See here, it got executed two times because we have two observers added to the subjects. Okay, so this update method is being called for both of the observers here, right? So friends, I hope you have understood about the observer pattern. I'll be covering other design patterns as well in the second part of this video later on. However, if you explain about these three patterns, singleton pattern, observer pattern and factory pattern to the interviewer, then interviewer would be knowing that you have a depth knowledge about the design pattern and it's going to create a very good impression to the interviewer. And at the end of this video, friends, there is a humble request. If you have not subscribed my channel, please subscribe it and press the bell icon so you will get the notification of all of my upcoming videos. And please share these videos to your friends or to the people who really need it. That's all for the day. I'll see you in my next video. Till then, take care and keep learning.